Hey friend, welcome to my channel karinealourde, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars in history and uncover the dark secrets of Hollywood, removing the shield of glamour while exposing the dark reality. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so and turn your notifications on so you never miss an upload. Today's story will tug at your hearts like it tugged at mine. Fredi Washington is a treasure. She was very defiant and rebellious, and many people were not as brave as her in a time where she could have chosen to be cowardly. We are going to talk about how one woman refused to pass as white while also doing the work to promote self-love, self-acceptance, to remove the stereotype of Black inferiority. Let's start with a quote from her that she told the Chicago Defender in 1945. She said, "Early in my career, it was suggested that I might get further by passing as French or something exotic, but to pass for economic or other advantages would have meant that I swallowed whole hog the idea of Black inferiority." End quote. For those who don't know what passing necessarily is in the context and how prevalent it was during this era, let me give you guys a little background. By passing, African Americans, as well as Asians, as well as Spanish, Native Americans, they could get a lot further in Hollywood. Not just in Hollywood, but in American culture, period. So by passing as a white person, especially African Americans could avoid the prejudice they normally encountered and enjoy the benefits of white society. Many African Americans saw it as a means of challenging the oppressive system and make fools of those who supported white supremacy. And according to historian Robert Fikes Jr., people became estranged from members of their own culture as a result. While a Black woman who passed could technically be accepted into white society, she would always be taking a risk of having her privilege withdrawn if her true race was ever revealed. Not to mention the possibility of being rejected by other Black people if they found out about her white identity. So this was not only done with Black people, but also we know with like the Rita Hayworth, who is Spanish, Marley Oberon, who is Asian, and so many more people in Hollywood that had to lie about where they were from. There were so many starlets that I did breakdowns for already on this channel that were speculated to actually have been Black, but they said they were Jewish or they were French or they were from somewhere else exotic so that people just would not label them as African American. They would even take voice lessons and manipulate their accents and create these fake, thick, heavy accents so that people would not think that they were indeed Black or African American. A lot of the stories was fabricated because this was an era where in white America, they were just very difficult. I just cannot understand how they just back then would not accept anyone who were not like them. It was very much so you had to be white to be considered smart, intelligent, talented, or to have any type of future in America. So many people started learning how to manipulate the system, a lot of mixed race people, to just pretend that they were white. It was even speculated that Marilyn Monroe was actually Mexican and that she was not white. That's why she bleached her skin and changed her curly texture. Her mom was actually born in Mexico. So there's been a lot of historians been digging into that with Marilyn Monroe and many other people, and I personally do believe it, and that the childhood was all fabricated and things of that nature to kind of hide that who she was. But in an era where it was hard financially for people to make it out there, you have a young woman, beautiful, gorgeous, and that was white passing with blue eyes, fair skin, and loose hair, that chose to proudly say, "I am Black." And to say that I am white and to pass would mean that I think being Black is inferior, and it's not. And she started making it more popular for people to just stand and say, "I am Black," that could pass as white. But people don't typically give her the credit that she deserves. There were hardly any roles for Black actors to play in Hollywood back then, only in race films, which we talked about in several other videos also, and race films only aimed at all Black audiences. Those who did their way into white targeted Hollywood films typically played stereotypical or demeaning roles. It was an Imitation of Life, ironically, a film about passing, that Washington finally overcame this stigma. Her most famous film appearance was Imitation of Life, and this movie brought me to tears. It is a gorgeous movie. You can find the full length here on YouTube or whatever streaming platform, but it is just a gorgeous movie that brought me to tears, because knowing just historically, when you study history, how many people went through this, it was gut-wrenching to see some of the dialogues and really sympathize with them. In the film, Washington portrayed a young light-skinned black woman who decided to pass as white in order to expand her options in a society where racial discrimination was legal in some states but not in others.
Good afternoon, ma'am. It's raining so hard. I brought rubbers and coat to fetch my little girl home.
I'm afraid you've made some mistake. I had no little colored children in my class.
Oh, there's my little girl.
Piola, you may go home.
I didn't know she was colored. Neither did I.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
Viola.
Oh, I know it's terrible of me, Miss B. But you don't know what it is to look white and be black. You don't know. I can't go on this way any longer.
Viola, how can you hurt your mother so? How can you make her suffer this way?
I'm sorry, Miss B, but I can't help it.
Don't cry. She'll come back to you. A few hard knocks and she'll come running back to her mother. That's what mothers are for.
No, Miss B. I lost my baby.
Starring Claudette Colbert as the white friend, the film explored topics like interracial identity, passing, and the similarities and differences between black and white women in a way that had never been done before in mainstream Hollywood. And it was the first film for white audiences to give equal weight to the experience of its black and white characters. For black viewers, Piola's internal struggle to love and accept herself resonated deeply as a call for justice and fair treatment. Historian Ann Everett explains that Piola's story was interpreted differently by white and black audiences. White viewers saw it as a black person's fight to be white, while black viewers saw it as a defiance of a black woman seeking the advantages afforded to white. But either way you spent it, both white and black audiences for the first time were having sympathy for a black character on screen. It was one of the first movies to do so and explain the complexities of being black and what it means to be black. Washington's obvious European ancestry made her a natural fit for the role, but it also led to her being typecast into the Tragic Mulatto. Washington's blue eyes, fair skin, and light brown hair led some moviegoers to believe that she could have passed for white in real life. In 1934, she said that the character did not reflect her real life, but that she took compliments for having made Piola seem real enough to merit such statements. And in 1949, she came out as a black woman to the press saying, "For one, I tell it like it is, and two, you needn't be white to be excellent. Most of my life has been spent proving doubters wrong. I am Negro and I am proud of my heritage," end quote. Imitation of Life was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture, but it did not win. Of course it didn't. Years later, in 2007, Time magazine ranked it among the 25 most important films on race. She was well received by the press, but she struggled to find work in Hollywood during the 1930s and 1940s because black actresses were stereotyped as maids and expected to have dark skin. Casting a light-skinned black actress opposite a white leading man, or even a black man at that, like beautiful black people on screen, according to beauty standards, was just seen as insulting to white audiences at that time. They didn't want to see beautiful black people on screen, well-dressed, speaking well. They wanted to see more of the maid, the yes sir, you know what I mean? And it was just insulting to have a woman of her caliber on screen. This concerned directors as the film production code forbade any allusion to race mixing. Not even the most rom-com roles were offered to her by Hollywood producers. Fredi Washington, one critic wrote, was too beautiful and not dark enough to play maids, but rather too light to act in all black movies. This really hurt her a lot when they told her that she was just not dark enough to play in white movies and too light to play in black movies, where she just felt like she didn't fit in anywhere and felt pretty lost. But she stuck true to herself. Many people encouraged her to just start passing as white to get more roles because black people weren't even allowing her in some of their race films because she was too light. And I want you guys to understand the era. This still happens today, sadly. It does break my heart to see, where with the topic of colorism, there is a divide of verses, you know? It was like some people are like, why you keep fighting for your own people or darker skinned people when they're even rejecting you in their films? You know, why don't you just pass as white, pass as French or something exotic, and leave these people to fight for themselves because they're not even accepting you? No one chooses who they are born from. No one chooses the color of their skin. And to automatically stereotype and hate someone because of their skin color is the most ignorant and evil thing any person on this earth can do, because this person had no choice to be born who they are, especially if they are your own people. To automatically label and criticize and reject them is just evil, no matter how you slice it. If we all lived with that ideology, then all of these nuances would not exist. But a lot of people do still want to live with that. But Fredi decided to still be defiant, saying, and I quote, "You see, I'm a mighty proud girl, and I can't for the life of me find any valid reason why anyone should lie about their origin or anything else for that matter. Frankly, I do not ascribe to the stupid theory of white supremacy and to try to hide the fact that I am a Negro for economic or any other reasons. If I do, I would be agreeing to be a Negro makes me inferior, and no matter how white I look on the inside, I feel black. There are many whites who are mixed blood, but still go by white. Why such a big deal if I go as Negro? Because people can't believe that I am proud to be a Negro and not white. To prove I don't buy white superiority, I choose to be a Negro," end quote. So that was always her response, no matter the hate that she got from both sides. Could you imagine? I can't imagine. Just like nowhere you go, everybody's letting you have it. You hate it, you know? I know we got to the whole context and depthness of it, but I do want to give you guys a little bit background on Fredi Washington and her childhood. Unfortunately, like with many of our Black starlets, you will not find beauty secrets like we do for all our other video breakdowns or their fitness regimen or anything like that, because people just didn't care to interview them to find out about their beauty secrets or anything like that. It's unfortunate because they were some of the most beautiful women, but there's barely any childhood photos about with their spouses. You won't find out information with some of them if they even had kids. It's just very unfortunate how little information is out there with these icons who really paved the way so much. But with what information I did find, I aim to do this video. So with her childhood, Fredi Washington was born into a large, diverse family in 1903 in Savannah, Georgia. Her father, Robert T. Washington, worked as a postal worker, and her mother, Harriet Hattie Walker Ward, worked as a dancer. Both of her parents were of African American and European ancestry, and Fredi was the second of their 5 children. Tragically, Fredi's mother died when she was only 11 years old. As a result, she and her sister Isabel were sent to St. Elizabeth Convent School for colored girls in Cornwallis Heights near Philadelphia for their education. After his second wife died while pregnant with their first child, Fredi's father remarried again and bore 4 additional children with his third wife, giving the family a total of 9 children. To escape the struggles they faced in Georgia, the Washington family moved north to Harlem, New York City during the time known as the Great Migration. At Julia Richmond High School in New York City, Fredi distinguished herself as an outstanding student who excelled in English and French classes. At school, she met like-minded friends who shared her interest in culture and literature. It was through this group that she first encountered performance at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, which later became one of her greatest passions. This was also where many within the African American community held events to promote Black pride and civil rights activism. Beyond being an excellent student, Fredi was also passionate about athletics, playing basketball for Julia Richmond High School, and running track and field events at local parks around Harlem on weekends. She developed a great affinity for sports that would stay with her throughout her life, along with all the people she had met from different backgrounds during her childhood years growing up in New York City. Ultimately, these experiences shaped Fredi into the brilliant actress and activist we know today, serving as an example for generations of young girls everywhere who dream big despite any odds against them. Washington became an activist for civil rights after working in the theater and film industry. Washington, along with Noble Cecil W.C. Handy, Paul Robeson, and Ethel Waters, founded the Negro Actors Guild of America. In 1937, to advocate for equal treatment of Black performers in the entertainment industry, the group's goal included challenging narrow role expectations, pushing for more options. Because of this group, there were now people that were fighting a lot more for more advancement in film, which they were very, very successful, as we can see today. Executive secretary duties were first handled by Washington. So she was very involved. She was the secretary of duties, handling everything and making the executive decisions, and took on and was the leader of the NAG, which now, as we can see, look at how much progress, and she rallied a lot of people together to make these movements possible. People's Voice, published in 1942 through 1948, was a newspaper for African Americans founded by Adam Clayton Powell Jr., a Baptist minister and politician in New York City who was married to her sister Isabel Washington Powell. And remember, Clayton was also born to Hazel Scott, which I did a video for her also. Washington was a theater writer and the entertainment editor for the paper. She spoke out forcefully against the racism African Americans faced, and she collaborated closely with Walter White, the president of the NAACP at the time, to address the most pressing issues facing the Black community in the United States. In 1933, Washington married Lawrence Brown, the trombonist in Duke Ellington's jazz orchestra. The marriage ended in divorce, and in 1952, Washington married a Stamford dentist, Hugh Anthony Bell, and moved to Greenwich, Connecticut. She was a devout Catholic. Fredi Washington Bell passed away at age 90, a long life, on June 28, 1994. She passed from pneumonia following a series of strokes at St. Joseph Medical Center in Stamford, Connecticut. In 1975, Washington was inducted in the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame. In 1979, Washington received the Circa Award for Lifetime Achievement in the Performing Arts. This is all I have for this video for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you share, bring awareness to these fabulous women. Comment below who else would you guys like to see next, and if you like the music you're listening to, the link is in the description. I love you guys. Until next time.